Hi, I'm Adelaide and welcome to my channel. If you want to subscribe, I would super duper appreciate that. We talk about ADHD, autism, and then everything in between, and we also do like vlogs, fun things, tutorials, all that good stuff. But today we're going to talk about ADHD and the 3 different types. So the least common type is the impulsive hyperactive, and then you have the most common, which is combined, and then the kind of middle ground, which is the inattentive. So inattentive type of ADHD is characterised by a lack of attention and distractibility without any hyperactive. I've tried to say this word about 5 times now, and every time I say it, it just comes out like gibberish. ADHD inattentive type is characterised as a lack of concentration and easily distracted without having very many or any tendencies of hyperactivity. So most commonly, adults and AFAB people, so assigned female at birth people, are typically diagnosed with inattentive ADHD. It's not to say that only girls and adults are diagnosed with this, it's just to say that mostly that is who is diagnosed with it. There's also a lot of boys and AMAB people who were diagnosed inattentive ADHD. I don't know if anybody remembers Adam from any of our previous videos, so he's actually diagnosed with inattentive ADHD. He does have some signs of hyperactivity, but more so it is kind of just inattentive. That's not to say that he doesn't have any concentration, and it's not to say that anyone with inattentive ADHD doesn't have concentration skills, because they do. We then have the hyperactive impulsive ADHD, and this one is characterised as somebody who is impulsive and hyperactive and doesn't really have any tendencies of inattentiveness. And again, it's not to say that they don't have any inattentiveness, it's just not as prominent in somebody with hyperactive and impulsive ADHD. And then you have the most common type, which is combined ADHD, which is what I have. So combined ADHD, again, characterised as inattentive and hyperactive. So you have kind of all of it. You have the whole of the ADHD. So according to the DSM-5, a person to be diagnosed with inattentive type ADHD must meet at least 6 of the symptoms and traits of inattentive ADHD. And it is the same for hyperactive. You must reach a certain amount of criteria in the DSM-5 to be diagnosed with hyperactive ADHD. And again, the same for combined. I think for combined ADHD, you need to meet like almost all of the criteria. So some of the inattentive symptoms of ADHD are often making mistakes that appear to be careless, and this can be at school, at work, or even at home. And these problems occur through the lack of paying attention, whereas it isn't you not paying attention, it's just the way that your ADHD brain works. It's also having difficulty keeping your attention on something, especially if you are not interested in it. So if you are doing schoolwork or like adult work and you're not 100% interested in it, it's really difficult for you to keep your concentration and actually do the task. But it can even be for activities that you genuinely find so fun and something that you actually want to do. You just can't seem to focus or keep your concentration or keep any attention focused on this task, no matter how much you want to do it. Your brain is just like, no. Another symptom of inattentive ADHD is during conversations with people, even one-on-one conversations, finding it really difficult to actually maintain focus and actively listen to the conversation without getting distracted by maybe one word that they say, and then you just go off in your head and start thinking about a whole host of different things while still seeming to be engaging in the conversation, but you haven't listened to any of it. So not being able to finish tasks is also another symptom of inattentive ADHD. Starting tasks doesn't seem to be the biggest issue, it's starting tasks and then not being able to complete them. And also I think one of the biggest symptoms of inattentive ADHD is being forgetful and forgetting things such as doctor's appointments, important dates, people's birthdays, people's names. I know a lot of people think that people who are forgetful don't care because you forgot, or say things like, how could you forget, it's so important, and they don't really understand that it's not on purpose. We do care, we care a lot, we just can't help. Our brain, it's like out of sight, out of mind, and that genuinely is such a strong character trait of ADHD. And it doesn't just go for objects, it can be for anything. Like, I sometimes forget I have a cat. That sounds really horrible. I don't mean like I just forget that I've got a cat, I know I've got a cat, but I mean out of sight, out of mind. If I'm sat in my living room and Zero is asleep in the bedroom, if he then walks into the living room, I'm like, oh god, yeah, I've got a cat. It's not that I forgot I had a cat, it's just he wasn't in the room, so it was just, people with ADHD will know what I mean. And not just forgetting like where you put your phone or, you know, where your keys are. It's forgetting really important dates and things that mean a lot to other people in your life. And it can feel like you're a really bad person because you forgot your best friend's birthday, or you forgot to go and say congratulations to somebody who just got married because you just forgot. And it's not because you don't care, and it's not because you don't know, because the minute that someone reminds you, it's like, oh my god, yeah, like, oh my gosh. And all of the memories just come flooding back. You are not a bad person because you forget things. If you've got ADHD, you're not a bad person, I promise. It's something that I struggle with a lot because I forget things a lot and I really don't mean to. Another thing for inattentive ADHD is time and timekeeping, because we don't have a perception of time. So if our time perception is just very warped and we don't view time the same way as like neurotypical people do. So we tend to be like either extremely early or extremely late for things. It doesn't mean that you don't care, and it doesn't mean that you're not trying. It is a disability. Whether you want to say it's a disability or not, it is, and it is something that we cannot help. So in order to meet that criteria for a diagnosis of inattentive ADHD, you have to meet at least six of the 9 checklist symptoms. If you don't meet at least 6, then you probably don't have inattentive ADHD. And it's not to say you don't have ADHD at all, it's just to say that you don't meet the criteria to be diagnosed with inattentive ADHD. So we also have symptoms for hyperactive impulsive type ADHD, and again you need to meet at least 6 of the DSM-5 criteria. Some of those include challenges with being still, so sitting still for long periods of time and fidgeting a lot. So for example, even though I'm still sat down and I haven't actually gotten up, I've like moved my position on my chair quite a lot of times. I'm constantly fidgeting with my hands and my feet are always moving because I physically cannot sit still. My body feels horrible when I sit still. It feels like I can feel like there's energy in my body that needs to get out, and I need to move to get it out. And if I'm still, it just gets like amped up in there, and then I tend to get really overwhelmed, so I have to keep moving. Hyperactive doesn't actually necessarily mean like running around and jumping off of walls. It can literally just be the fact that you can't sit still. You're not getting up and walking about, but you're moving your hands, you're moving your feet, you're getting comfy in position, you're like moving your head and things like that. So that can be the type of hyperactive impulsive way to look at it, in how being unable to sit still can present in real life. Because I know sometimes you'll read the criteria and you're like, if you're like me, because I'm autistic as well, so I think very literally, and I'll read that and be like, well, I don't really get up, so no, I don't have trouble with that. But when you look further into it and how it actually presents in real life, especially as an adult, you find other ways to like get out of your seat, which is moving about in your seat, changing position, trying to get comfy, fidgeting with your fingers, clicking your pen. All of these different symptoms are challenges with being able to sit still. Another thing as well is actually running around and feeling like you need to get up and do things. This is more so aimed towards children and teenagers who do tend to have the ability to get up and run around, climb on things and stuff like that. But a lot of adults, again, it's difficult to kind of see how that would present in adult life if we aren't in a position where we can just run around and climb things. But it's maybe sitting on the arm of the chair instead of on the actual cushion of the chair. If you're out and about and you see like a ladder and you're like, oh god, I really want to climb it, I want to climb the ladder. Like a child might just go over and start climbing on the ladder, but as an adult, even with ADHD, you'll have the impulsive urge to want to do that, but you'll fight the urge and you'll mask and you'll not do it. The built up energy and you can't stop thinking about doing it is the same thing. That's how it would present in an adult, and how it would present in real life is you want to, but you're actively choosing not to because you know that it's not socially acceptable to do so. But if there was no one about and you was on your own, you probably just step on it a little bit. Another symptom of hyperactivity and impulsiveness is very rarely actually engaging in your hobbies. And I thought this would be classed as inattentive, but it's actually classed as hyperactive and impulsive because it comes under the form of constantly chasing the dopamine and trying to find new hobbies. And then you'll do a hobby for a long time and then you'll push it to one side and not really do that hobby anymore. It doesn't give you the same release of dopamine. So you don't engage in your hobbies all that often, but you seem to have tons of hobbies, but also simultaneously have actually 0 hobbies. Another one of the criteria is being seemingly on the go or being driven by a motor. And again, if you think very literally, it's hard to see how that would appear in real life. So this was one of the symptoms that I looked at and I was like, I don't feel like I'm driven by a motor. But then I have extreme anxiety. I'm constantly thinking, my thoughts are always racing. I'm never still. I always have to feel like I need to be doing something, whether that be cleaning, whether that be making my bed, whether that be going on a walk, whether that be talking to people, like all of these different things. I constantly feel as though I need to be doing something. I need to be moving my body in some way. And that isn't necessarily to be like, I need to be running about. It's just I need to be doing something. I think knowing how these kind of traits are characterized and how they appear in real life is really helpful, because a lot of times people who have ADHD will feel like imposter syndrome a lot, and I'm going to make a video about imposter syndrome because it is something that a lot of us deal with. But if you don't actually realize how your traits appear in real life, you can feel like you're not valid because you're like, oh, I don't have this trait and I don't have that trait, but you do. You just don't present in the way that is written in the DSM-5, because that's actually written and geared towards children with ADHD, not adults with ADHD. Another symptom is difficulty waiting in line and waiting your turn, and this comes with the not having time perception. So this is a big one for me, and I used to always think that I was just super impatient and I didn't understand why other people didn't seem to have a problem with waiting for things. And it's not that I have a problem with waiting, it's just the time perception is different. So for me, 5 minutes can feel like a second, or it can feel like an eternity. If I'm standing in line for something, I'm just stood there doing nothing. I'm not able to do anything other than wait. And if I'm just stood there waiting, time passes extremely slowly because I'm bored. ADHD is basically a dopamine deficiency. So if I'm not feeling excited and feeling happy, it's hard to feel anything other than sad or angry or frustrated. If I'm stood in a queue, I'm gonna feel really frustrated because I can't do anything. If an ADHD person is stood in a queue for 5 minutes, to them it's probably felt like 3 hours. And if you as a neurotypical person stood in a queue for 3 hours, I'm pretty sure you'd start to get frustrated because you've been stood doing nothing for 3 hours. But that's exactly how it feels to an ADHD person. They're not impatient, it's just our time perception is very different, and you need to look at it in a way of how would you feel if you've been stood waiting for something for 3 hours, because that's how it feels to us. But having difficulty waiting in line again is a symptom that you think, do you have difficulty waiting in line? But if you stand in a line for a couple of minutes and start to get extremely frustrated, that is a sign that you struggle with waiting in line. Another symptom and trait of hyperactive ADHD is interrupting people when they're speaking and finishing their sentences. You don't mean to do it, you're not trying to interrupt, it's just you get a thought and then the impulse to just say the thought immediately. Sometimes you know how someone is going to end their sentence, and so to show that we're listening, we'll finish your sentence. And that is another trait of ADHD, and that I'm not really sure how that would manifest differently for other people, because I know like sometimes you can mask and you'll know you want to finish their sentence because you know what they're going to say, but you don't do it. I tend to just do it a lot. I find it really difficult not to, and it is something that I struggle a lot to mask, but I'm trying my best to just allow myself to not mask my ADHD symptoms as much, because it's exhausting, it really is. And I let the people in my life know I might interrupt you when you're speaking, I might be really impulsive, I might finish your sentence, just ignore me, or, you know, continue on as normal. And it's been really helpful to be able to do that and to actually be around people who respect and understand the fact that I have combined ADHD and I'm also autistic. So yeah, it can feel like a lot at times, but your people are out there and the people that will support you will support you. I went off on a tangent, I don't even know if half of this video is going to make sense now because I'm pretty sure I just kept getting distracted. But the majority of the symptoms and traits of ADHD for impulsive and hyperactive, and then combined is just having all of them combined. I think it's, you have to have 6 out of the 9 for inattentive. I'm not sure how many you have to have for the hyperactive, but for combined you have to have at least 18 to be diagnosed with combined ADHD. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have like even split of each. I think I'm gonna stop rambling now. I'm not sure how long I've been talking for, and I'm pretty sure that nothing that I have said has made any sense. And if that's the case, I'm super sorry. If you enjoyed the video, I would super duper appreciate if you could give me a thumbs up and leave a comment below if you want me to talk about anything else to do with ADHD, autism, eating disorder recovery and all things like that, because I'll be more than happy to do so. And I'm always happy to be corrected as well. So if I ever say anything that isn't necessarily true or doesn't actually translate well, just let me know and I will make sure to correct myself, because I obviously am only going from my own experience and the things that I know. Other people have different opinions and know different things to me and things like that, and I always like having open discussions. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was somewhat educational and was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye!